Welcome to another episode, Pound for Pound Boxing Report, episode 203. I'm your host, Michael. Joining me this week, I'm Gail from Communities Digital News, Daniel from the Inscriber, Jason from Jab Hook. What's going on, lady and gents?
Hey, we got a
Hello.
lot to talk about. You don't need to be watching any basketball game.
Yeah, a lot of breaking news doesn't broke down the pipe within the last couple of hours. Actually, I'm getting some stuff been popping on my end, personal Twitter and Pound for Pound stuff. So let's get this show started. For those who are new to Pound for Pound Box Report, Pound for Pound Box Report live YouTube show, blog, podcast, and blog discussing all things boxing. The motto is: when boxing is good, we will talk about it. When it's bad, we will talk about it. The bottom line is, if it concerns the sweet science, we will talk about it. If you want to check out all information regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page is the place to go to. P4pboxingreport.wordpress.com is the link. Check the right of the page. You can find links to the channels and pages on Twitter, and the Twitter handle for Pound Boxing Report is at P4P Boxing Report. You can also find the channels and pages on links for the channels and pages on G Plus, YouTube, uh, Tumblr, Facebook. Uh, you can also find the links to where to listen to the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitcher Radio, Player FM for the folks in the UK, as well as Mixcloud. Let's get this show started. Big fight, of course, was the unification bout at heavyweight between Anthony Joshua and Joseph Parker. I'm going to break this discussion about this fight down into two segments: the fight itself, and then what went on during the post-fight, specifically what Anthony Joshua and Hurd had to say about the prospect of fighting Deontay Wilder, Deontay Wilder's response, and some breaking news that kind of broke down that's happening, that's popping right now. Starting to show off with ladies first, I'll go to you, Gail. We're going to talk about the fight in itself first. Um, a lot of people consider it boring. For those who don't know, Joshua ended up winning by unanimous decision to capture Parker's WBO belt. So now he has the IBO, IBF, WBA, WBO heavyweight straps. Went the distance. A lot of folks were a little bit disappointed, even found it a little bit boring. Some found it controversial because of the decision. I've heard from more than a few folks who felt that Parker won, including Daniel here. He felt Parker won when he scored the fight live. I personally had Joshua winning by 2 points. Kind of tedious bout. A lot of strategy involved. A lot of people were surprised that Parker actually went the distance. Uh, your recap of the fight. Were you surprised how it went? Who did you have winning?
I was a little bit surprised how it went. Not from a performance standpoint, but because before the fight, both fighters made it clear, hey, we're going for it. We're coming to have a war. It's going to be a brawl. It was anything but a war or a brawl. So whether that was purposeful to deflect your opponent and throw him off on Parker's part, who knows? I do think it was the smart approach for Parker, as we saw in the results. He went all 12 rounds. He looked good at times. He had several rounds where he clearly won. The scorecards we can discuss in more detail. They were way off. And the fight was marred by what I can only hope was an inexperienced referee who just simply found himself in deep water, not knowing what to do. Because if it was anything else, then I've got a real problem. That slowed the fight down, and at one point separated the fighters when there was some real progress being made on Parker's part. I'd be very angry if I was Joseph Parker. Nevertheless, he lost a decision. It was not as close or not as far apart as the card said. It was far closer. In my mind, it's one of those fights where even with a loss, the defeated boxer's stock goes up. And I think Parker's stock goes up with this fight. He's, clearly still viable in the division. And one of those guys where you can see learning from this experience and getting better. Joshua, It exposed the flaws he still has because he is still learning on the job, as we've all talked about. But his tremendous talents see him through. He's a smart guy in the ring. He adjusts well. Um, Fans are disappointed in this. They shouldn't be watching boxing. The spectacle of it, the huge arena, the crowd was engaged. It was an intriguing chess match with two guys staring across the board from each other the whole way. You just never knew what was going to transpire from minute to minute. And while it might not have been a slugfest, it certainly, in my mind, wasn't boring at all.
Get to the scores. Let me just say the official scores were 118, 118, 110 on two scorecards, and 119, 109 on the third. Far too wide, in my opinion. I had it 7 rounds to 5, 115, 113 on my personal scorecards. I thought Joshua, he took the fight in the last couple of rounds. Joseph Parker, when he had the opportunity to seize the moment, he didn't. And while Joshua did, uh, to your other point about the referee, that was a piss poor job. I mean, just as you said, Gil, just as the fight was getting good, and just as Parker was coming on and landing punches, particularly I want to say in round 6, 5 or 6, the referee stepped in. The moment in round 8, Joshua fought with loose tape on the glove the entire round. The ref did nothing, and then the following round, round 9, he's kept fighting. He would again loose tape on the glove, and it got to the point where Joshua he stepped back, took the tape off the glove, and went to the corner. And I'm sitting in here like, that's what the referee is supposed to do. So he essentially did what the referee should have done. Incompetent, inadequate refereeing all fight long. Uh, I was wondering if he was going to take off the mask and Lawrence Cole was going to show up. That's how bad it was. But yeah, it wasn't.
Who we all know is Michael's favorite referee of all time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't a
Yeah.
great fight in action, but it was very, very tactical. Both fighters were thinking throughout, and even though Joseph Parker wasn't as aggressive as he should have been, in my opinion, here's the thing: he neutralized a lot of what Joshua did offensively because of his defense, because of his head movement. The vaunted right hand from Joshua couldn't land with any consistency. He couldn't land the uppercut either because every time Joshua threw the uppercut, Parker did a very slick thing. He would turn his body and throw up the forearm in front of his chin so he wouldn't get hit. So he was very, very slick in there, did some very subtle things. I'll go to you, Jacob. Your thoughts on the fight?
Agree with the. I had Joshua winning. It was a close fight. I thought Parker, to Gale's point, I thought Parker showed that he's a live dog in the division and he has nothing to hang his head about. I wouldn't call the fight boring. I mean, I think especially Americans are very quick to judge a fight if there's not a knockout or a bunch of action that it's boring. But it was, again, I think very tactical, very measured. Joshua not having gone 12 before was probably, playing it smart and not, exerting too much energy against a dangerous opponent like Parker. He was coming forward a lot. Parker, you had the ref in there that was, a little bit too much part of the fight than you would like. You want to see these guys. It's a fight. So see them mix it up. See some of the inside fighting. But I mean, it kind of leads us to what we eventually want to see, which is the big super fight, the unification fight. But again, a bunch of names in the division can be right in line. Parker could be right there in line to challenge the winner, potentially, maybe win another fight and challenge the winner of that. And, the heavyweight division, has some new life in it. Again, Joshua, he has we know he's not the perfect fighter, and I'm not claiming he is, but I mean, I think he's better than maybe he's getting given credit for, in the sense that he is smart, and he's I think learning different things. Can he sharpen a few things? Yes, but he, like you said earlier, he poured it on, or he put, I think, more effort in the final rounds to try to basically secure the fight, which is a smart thing to do. Even though he was in his hometown, you don't ever want to leave it to the judges, and you know. I think that shows he's determined and that he wants to stay champion, and he's not afraid of fighting the top in the division. So I tip my hat for that, for having a sense of urgency, and putting the foot on the gas towards the end, when what all fighters should do.
Your thoughts, Daniel?
Um, well, where to begin? Like I said, like you said, Mike, I thought Parker won. And it was 8-4 to me. Parker almost swept the first half of the fight, with the exception of round 3. It was mainly that his jab was working really well, and he wasn't letting Joshua land any combination of counters effectively. There were plenty of times when Joshua was throwing the right hand and he slipped it. He rolled with the punch. Or when they were inside, they were clinching, Joshua was trying to throw the uppercut, but he didn't land it flush or land it on the chest. Not to mention, like I said, the movement that was bothering Joshua. Even though he was putting Parker in the ropes at times, there were times though where Parker caught him and then wound up having to chase Joshua. I forgot which round it was. It was like the first big sequence where Parker lands a shot, Joshua backs away, and Parker goes in to try to attack, and Joshua's holding his arm out, like jabbing, and the referee breaks it up. And we'll get into the referee in a second, but Joshua did came on in the second half. Like, he was showing a little bit of win, and Parker, like I said, was showing also himself to get pretty tired in the 8th or 9th round. But he built himself back up in the 10th, 11th, and 12th. Now, there were shots that Joshua landed, the uppercuts that were nice and flush, but there were also an uppercut that I forgot, I think it was the 10th, 11th round, that Parker threw flush and it wobbled Joshua. Now, maybe there was a point of Parker being a little bit too cautious and not going in, or maybe it was just the fact that he's seen every time that he's getting close, the referee breaks it up. And let's not get into the fact that the referee let that tape situation happen for 3 rounds, pretty much. One for a round, the round where Joshua went to tape it up, and then the round after that because it got off again. It was a very good fight, a very, very tactical fight. They each fought in a distance where you can land your shots, but at the same time, you can get away when the counter comes. Now, I get the boy in front of the British crowd. They want to see Joshua. They wanted to see Joshua knock Parker out. But at the end of the day, this fight's going to be known for 2 things, unfortunately. Those scorecards, which you can pretty much just say they were filled out before the fight even started. And Giuseppe, the referee. That was probably the worst refereeing I've seen in a while that does not feature Lawrence Cole or Brick Draculich.
Do you think it was set up?
Well, that's the whole thing. I don't think it's as much as a setup as Hurd maneuvering his leverage to get a referee that apparently, when Parker mentioned it, didn't even speak English.
But when Joshua and them and Hearn talked about it in their post fight, they claim he does speak English. Spoke perfect English with them. So I don't know what's the deal.
Well, I expect for them to say that he spoke English. Like you're really going to admit, oh yeah, we hired a referee that doesn't really speak the language, so my opponent could be at a disadvantage. Are they really going to admit that?
Well, they said that I just mentioned that because within that, Joshua said he's going to put up a little video on his site, and part of that's going to be a discussion with them and the referee. So, yeah, in which he spoke perfectly good English with them. So, yeah, like I said, yeah.
That's going to be a very, 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 very ugly situation that's going to happen. That if it does, even if it turns out that it was broken English at best. Either way, though, that's unfortunately how the fight's going to be remembered. As far as Joshua's comments, like I mentioned when I spoke with you and Charlie Brown, if it was up to probably Joshua and Wilder themselves, this fight would be in July. However, unfortunately, you had within two fights within the card the double speak of Eddie Hearn. When the fight previous to that, David Price versus Alexander Povetkin happened, you saw him discussing the situations when it comes to Joshua after Povetkin won. It's like, oh well, Povetkin's a mandatory. We have to see what that does. We may have to put him with Dillian White. And then, but when Joshua won, he's suddenly talking about, oh, we want Wilder. Wilder's people never contacted us, even though Wilder's people have already stated the emails from Barry Hearn talking about the fight going to Vegas. So there's already a bit of doublespeak, and let's not forget the doublespeak from Joshua too. After Joshua pretty much said, Deontay Wilder, let's go. They asked him again the situation. Oh, I'll fight Deontay Wilder, and then he had to throw it in very quickly. Or Tyson Fury.
Well, let's get into that. Kind of spoiled it a little bit. Uh, uh, yeah, the post fight, which Josh was asked about uh, Deontay Wilder, the prospect of fighting him, and he basically said that he wants to fight A1, B. He wants the fight to happen on home turf. The only thing that I was disappointed, I'm going to you first, Jacob, is that uh, there was no need for Joshua to mention Tyson Fury, in my opinion. Fury he's out of the picture right now. He's irrelevant. All for 2.5 years, 30 months, abusing his body, drugs, drinking, and who knows what else. You've seen pictures of him or videos of him training, but you hadn't seen any announcements of a fight. He's been doing more talking than anything else. So why continue to mention him? Other than that, I didn't have a great problem with what Joshua was saying. Um, what they said in the post-fight press conference. I mean, it is what it is. That's just promotional talk from Hearn. Your thoughts on Joshua's commentary post-fight in terms of the prospect of fighting Deontay Wilder?
I mean, for me, the first name that came out of his mouth was Wilder, so that's the important thing. It wasn't like the Stevenson situation where he brings up two totally out of the blue names when we want to just hear Kovalev. So I think that's the biggest difference to me. And it wasn't like he said Wilder or Fury. He said, I want Wilder, and then, yeah. And then it was kind of like another name got brought up. So that could be strategic. I mean, these guys are in a business, and if they think that that's going to sell tickets, or if for some reason Wilder gets injured or whatever, because he's had injuries before, or they want to have a fight before the Wilder fight, and because he was the man that beat, Klitschko and technically should have had the belts if he didn't fuck up his life. I mean, I get it, but I mean, I think he knows and everybody knows that they want to see that Wilder fight. And I think I agree with Daniel in the sense that if it's up to Wilder and Joshua, this fight would already be happening. But unfortunately, there's a lot more involved in that. And there's even another. I think he got asked another question. I don't know if it wasn't after the fight. I don't think, but about where I know he said he'll fight in England or he's not going anywhere. But he also said that if at the right price, if he was offered enough money, he'll go anywhere. So again, that the motivation there being money.
I'll go to you, Gail. Your reaction to the post-fight presser. Deontay Wilder responded on Twitter with some commentary that I didn't personally like. I'm not gonna go into the details of that. Well, shoot, I'll go with the stuff about take the Africa off your arm. You're not a warrior. Blah blah blah. I personally don't like that stuff. But Wilder's basic thing is in a video that he wants to fight. A lot of back and forth talk here and there. Your reaction to that, and also speaking of Deontay Wilder, you shared a bit of breaking news for me just prior to the show. Some details on that and your reaction to the comments of Joshua and Eddie Hearn post fight.
Well, it seems that I'm usually the wet blanket here, reminding fans that while boxing is a sport, boxing is also a business. And sport and business cross paths all the time. And that informs what happens. You can speak as a sportsman, as an athlete, and Wilder and Joshua both do, about their own athletic talent, their own star power, their own confidence, and that's fine. But there are business factors that go into this. And Hearn did talk about that in the ring after the fight. Now, he was exaggerating a little bit. Yeah, it's Eddie Hearn, so take that part with a grain of salt. But he isn't wrong in his overall statement that here you have Joshua, who has in his last 3 fights, including Saturday, put 250,000 people in seats, paying seats. That is undeniable. Wilder's having trouble putting 15,000 in an arena, which is not shabby at all. I mean, this is nothing to sneeze at. But he did not sell out Barclays for his fight with Ortiz, arguably his biggest fight. And there's all the chatter that goes on about fights being papered, especially by that particular set of promoters and in that venue. So, all right, be that as it may. It's a fact that Joshua is a far bigger draw. Joshua is the far bigger meal ticket than Wilder. And that has a lot that drives a lot of the decision making. Not simply who is the better athlete, who is likely to win. No, it's all about who is likely to put more butts in the seats, who is likely to generate overall, a bigger gate, a bigger draw, bigger money overall. The bigger the pie is, the bigger the shares for everybody. So would you rather take, it's the old math. Would you rather have 50-50 of, $1 million? Or would you rather have 30 or 40% of $10 million? Do the math. Do the math. Now, I get it. If you could have the fight in your own country, you'd prefer that. But if you could make that kind of money, you're going to need to get practical about the insistence of 50-50. Wilder and his team need to get realistic and realize their biggest payday is if they go to the UK and they partner up with Eddie and AJ and fill Wembley Stadium with 90,000 screaming fans and all the gambling that goes with it, and everybody rides. And that is what's going to happen. That fight is going to be in the UK. So Wilder can certainly hold off, and stall by insisting on a 50-50 that he's realistically never going to get. Never. And maybe he's holding out to see the offers, incrementally go up. Now, what's happened late this afternoon that's been very interesting little wrinkle. The boxing media was invited to a international media conference call tomorrow morning with Wilder and Lou DiBella. Only Wilder and Lou DiBella. That is extremely unusual. There's no agenda. There's no specific topic stated. It's just, here's the call, time, phone number, be there. And I'm really not sure what in the world they have to say, other than this is very out of the norm. And when you're live with a whole pack of hungry media, you know you're there to take questions. So if it's something that could have been handled in simply issuing a statement or posting a video, they would have done that. So there's something more complicated going on. I can't begin to even fathom what it is, but in little more than 18 hours, we'll figure it out because we'll have had the call. The call is going down at 2:30 Eastern time, 11:30 Pacific time on the West Coast. So we'll know after that. Watch your Twitter. I'm sure there will be some live reporting going on Twitter as the call progresses.
Yeah, I don't know if it's discussing the prospect of a fight with Joshua. I don't know if it's an apology for his I want to catch a body comment. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but um, I agree. This is
It'd be really typical to issue an apology in this kind of format. So something tells me it's not that. If he wants to turn the spotlight back on him after all the shade that was thrown at him after the fight on Saturday, maybe it's that. That seems a little simple to me, but maybe I'm reading too much complexity into it, and that's all it is. But it is absolutely a very unusual move. I've never seen anything like it where there was no agenda stated and it was a single fighter doing a call like that.
your
Just
thoughts
very.
I see Bo has joined us from Truth and Facts. I'll go to him first to get his recap of the fight as well as the breaking news regarding Deontay Wilder and DeBella having this press conference tomorrow. Your thoughts, Bo?
Yeah, y'all gonna have to catch me up to speed on a couple of things because I am on vacation, and you guys know how the internet can be down here. So I'm just glad I was able to get in on this show.
Yeah, I'll just give you a quick rundown. Got word just before the show that Deontay Wilder and Lou DiBella now reached out to your folks over at Three Kings and some other folks that Wilder and DeBella are going to have a press conference tomorrow, international conference call, 2:30 Eastern. Don't know what it's about, but it's just a spur of the moment thing. They're gonna have a press conference tomorrow. They didn't give it a subject matter to it or anything like that. But yeah, that's basically the breaking news right now. So yeah, your thoughts on the fights, your thoughts on what Joshua had to say, Joshua and Hurd have to say after the fight, as well as this breaking news regarding Wilder and DeBella in this conference call tomorrow.
I've come to the conclusion that both sides are doing everything to hype the fight, but it probably ain't really doing anything as far as signing contracts to actually make the fight.
And let me interrupt. There's also word in the UK from UK sources that negotiations could start next week for that fight. So it's just a lot of scuttlebutt right now, just a lot of talk.
Right, because Eddie Hearns have said, oh, well, Wilder is always using Joshua name, but Eddie Hearns is doing the same thing with Wilder. He's always dropping Wilder name. You didn't want him, they didn't want him coming into the ring. Then after the fight, Joshua would say, I'll spark him. And then Eddie is like, well, he should have came. UK. Now that aspect, I do agree with Eddie. I think he should have went. He could have went and stood up at the podium and did whatever he wanted to do up at the podium and talk crap, But I understand why Wilder didn't go because they didn't want him putting Dylan White in his face and trying to detract that fight. So man, for me, I'm at that wait and see. I'm just at this. You know what, man? I'm just gonna wait and see because this drama that it was tiresome when it was Floyd and Pacquiao. Same thing when it was Canelo and GGG. And now you got Wilder and Joshua doing. And I mean, I get it. I understand it. It's probably a big fight. And nowadays, people get more into making one big fight into making several big fights because back in the and I said this one time. I said I remember in the old days you could have like these guys, the heavyweights, would fight each other 2 and 3 times and still made very good money. But now everybody want to do everything in one fight. Nobody wants to, do a second fight or whatever. So, man, like I said, until right now, as far as I'm concerned, everybody's doing. Oops, I'm sorry. Yeah, everybody's doing a lot of talking, but at the end of the day, we just got to see signed contracts. So as far as like I said, both sides are doing everything to hype the fight, but there's very little being done to make contracts. But as far as Joshua and Parker, I think, and I said this, Joshua came in at 240, and I said he's going to have to come in light, and I knew he would for stamina issues. When he's 254 pounds, he has stamina issues. That he just can't carry that weight. So he came in at a good weight that was comfortable for him. I think that what we saw, Joseph Parker actually, and I said this, he was a good boxer. Some people thought he came in with a survival game plan, but I think as the fight went on and he realized, oh, this guy isn't really hurting me and I'm having some success, then he actually started doing that. I felt the ref was just getting. I don't know what was going on with that ref. I was like, I don't know what's up with this ref. Joshua was allowed to call his own timeout. Like
Yeah, I
I've
know,
never seen.
right?
Yeah, I was like, wow, I've never seen that in boxing. You know,
It was like he
and then
was
the
fed
score.
up with. It was like he was fed up with the fact that he was fighting with loose gloves, loose tape on the glove, and the referee wouldn't do anything about it. So he just like, F it, let me do the referee's job for him.
Yeah, and then the scorecards were erroneous. Now I had Joshua winning the fight 8-4, but those scorecards are scorecards, as Paulie would say, that you filled out at home and just came into the stadium with just like them judges filled them scorecards out, came in the building, and it was like a fan because they watched they actually watched the fight. But the fight pretty much, like I said, if Joshua didn't knock him out, there was no way I thought Joseph Parker was going to win a 12-round decision, but I still had him winning. Um, so you know, it was I'm not gonna say a lousy performance because Joseph Parker's he's a good boxer and he wasn't his game plan wasn't to be in Joshua's comfort zone. He wasn't gonna stay in the comfort zone that Joshua wants you to be in, which is getting up against the ropes. Now I noticed that Joshua don't like cutting off the ring, and he doesn't really even like having to move towards you. He tries to wait for you to get on that rope and then jump on you. But Joseph Parker was good at getting off the rope. But Joshua jab was better in this fight than I've seen in some of his most fights. But again, it's because he was lighter. So, good fight, man. I'm not gonna bash the guy. Listen, Joseph Parker is just one of them dudes. If you ever follow his fights aren't exactly like exciting fights. It's gonna be some boxing. He was into something, he's gonna go for it. So I like that. And all the fights, David Price showed a little bit of remnants when we was talking about him, but in the end, Povetkin won out, and then I think the IBF is ordering a Dylan White eliminator. So you know what, man? Right about now, heavyweight division, there's no clarity as to what's going on. They took something that we had clarity, which was we could have got Wilder versus Joshua, and they took something where you had clarity, and they just kind of mucked it up because you had Dominic Brazil. The IBF ordered something for him. Now they ordered something for Dylan White, and then the WBC hasn't. I don't know what the hell is going on, man. I'm just waiting to see. Now Pacquiao and Lucas Matisse. I'm glad I'm on vacation because when I get off this, I'm gonna go sit down by that pool, get me a mojito, and chill out.
Your thoughts on all of this scuttlebutt, all of this talk floating around post fight, Daniel?
Oh, well, the Deontay thing, that's going to be very, very interesting because, like Gail mentioned, this is very unusual when it comes to media relations. You don't usually have something that is between like that a promoter and a fighter are going into it for something like an apology, like a body comment. That one I find a little bit hilarious because when we still come from the age where Mike Tyson did talk about eating somebody else's kids, and he get thoroughly investigated for that. And guess what? Wilder has said before that he wanted to catch a body. Before, Mr. Burns said he wanted to decapitate him, and it was just mainly a talk. But at the stage of WBC, and I can kind of get it. It's gonna be interesting to see what is announced. If it is a curveball to get him back in the discussion after the situation with Joshua, he really doesn't need that press conference to do it. He could do that just on his Instagram. But what it may be is, well, at least what my feeling is, it could legitimately be them releasing the emails. If it's with Lou DiBella say, I got this email right here. I'm sending it to you from Barry Hearn discussing this fight. And basically just try to call out Eddie Hearn. It's a tactic. And otherwise, like I said, he has to see how the situation shapes up with Joshua, whether Joshua is going to fight a mandatory, whether Joshua is going to come here and fight Big Baby, or they're going to try to actually get a fight for him in the end of 2018. It's very unusual for this to be happening. Now, like Bo mentioned, like I said, now we have an IBF mandatory slot for Dillian Whyte. By the way, this is probably his third or fourth title eliminator for a sanctioning body that he's fighting in a row. This time for the IBF. Against the guy, mind you, who supposedly turned down his mandatory slot due to an injury in Kruda Pulev. Now I get it though. It does put him closer to a Joshua rematch. So I get that part. And I have to see how this shapes up because apparently Gail is this Wilder thing at 2:00, 2:30?
Correct. 2:30 Eastern time.
Okay, well, they're going to have to reach it up because it just came out that Canelo is going to have a similar press situation tomorrow.
I just, in the last 5 minutes, have learned that he has a invite-only briefing. It is not a call. It is in person at noon Pacific.
So either Wilder is doing this press conference to throw his hat in the ring to fight Triple G, or Canelo and Wilder are going to fight each other in a super fight.
Yeah, I had got word from C-Bone Bo about this. I didn't say it, but yeah, I got word from him that Canelo's going to do a similar thing. So
Yeah. Hey, can you guys hear me?
yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay. I just found out that Gail bought a Fight Chavez GGG shirt. Is that true? I found that out.
Yeah, I think you need some better sources.
This is
She didn't buy it. She had it made.
This is like boxing. All this stuff is like boxing's version of Days of Our Lives or All My Children. My goodness.
Oh, I have never this afternoon with this stuff swirling. Honestly, I cannot remember this many last minute notifications with all this mystery surrounding them. I mean, obviously, we're getting off track, and we will talk about the latest developments in the whole Canelo Triple G rematch situation. But yeah, it's swirling notifications and emails, and some people invited and some not, and some getting word, some not. And the boxing world's horrible at keeping secrets. I mean, it just doesn't happen. So we got us some crazy business going on. In the next 24 hours, we're going to have a lot of things to chew over and talk about. And hopefully there'll be some clarification in all of these things, because that's what fans really want to know.
We can jump in.
It's almost like the political landscape.
No, it's not that bad.
Oh, God.
Well, no, because when it comes to the political landscape, the sewage is coming from one area specifically right now. This is coming from everywhere.
Twitter.
Right.
Yeah, right. And they're using Twitter. This is live press conference stuff, but it's disheartening. It really is, because, and I said this new age of the way they doing fights now, it's pissing me off. Like, I just want to see y'all in the ring. I don't need to see your promoter on TV. I don't need to see y'all making phone calls on The Voice, getting all y'all. I don't need to. I just need to see motherfuckers in the ring. That's all I need to see. I don't need this drama. It's enough drama in regular life for me to be doing this with boxing. It's crazy. I don't understand it.
Well,
Muhammad Ali. If Muhammad Ali was pulling this kind of shit, my God.
Let's put it to you this way, Bo. I think we can pretty much blame how Maypac shaped up for the way it is now, because now the template for big fights is you have to talk about making the fight. You have to show that you are in the effort of making the fight in order to get the public on your side. Because that's the unfortunate lesson of Maypac. The lesson was, okay, we just want to see these two guys in the ring, but we're just going to pay attention to them making little moves for the past 5 years. And when we find, and in that case, like I said, it wound up being a very disappointing product. But luckily, in the case like of Joshua Wilder or whatever the Canelo and Golovkin situation is going to turn in, it may turn out to be even pretty decent fights. So I get the annoyance, and unfortunately, unless something gets done otherwise that changes the business landscape of it, that's what the current template that we have at the moment.
I can't remember who mentioned Price and Povetkin. Any further discussion about that? For me, good fight, exciting fight, but you knew eventually that David Price was going to get knocked out. I don't care if he hurt Povetkin with that left hook, and if the fight would have went 30 seconds longer, he would have been in some real trouble. Povetkin might have been knocked out. The fact is, he didn't get knocked out. And once the fact is, the bell kind of saved him. And once the bell saved him, you knew eventually that he was going to catch David Price. And that's what he did. His leaky chin showed up once again. And I think he should retire. Any more discussion about that fight between Povetkin and Price? Mandatory would set up a fight with Dillian White. He's mandatory of some organization. Any more discussion on that?
I don't think Povetkin should be able to fight. I think he's a cheater, and I don't know. That's just my opinion.
Anyone else?
Let's just say it first. Whatever they decide, this fight's going to be in Russia. The Joshua fight, if he was, it's going to be in Russia. Because as our good friend EJ Box Live pointed out, Eddie Hearn really does not like doing purse bids. And if he's forced into one, he's not going to put all the effort into it. So, unfortunately, you're dealing now with a business landscape where a guy that has kept himself in his little island of isolation in Russia, and the sanctioning bodies have not really punished him for it, and now he can actually get a title shot. Where we know Joshua was talking about staying in the UK, he's going to be forced to go into Russia. Where something that Wilder could have said that he would have been happily done because he almost did it. So it's ugly. It's an ugly part of the sport, but either way, whoever wins it, if it's Dillian Whyte, if it's Anthony Joshua, I do hope, just because he is a drug cheat, he's a guy who squandered his opportunity twice. He should get bodied. He should get knocked out. And ultimately, hopefully, that's the last we hear of Alexander Povetkin.
But it won't. Let's be honest about it. It will not. Pays to be connected, and he's connected heavily. So yeah, he's going to keep getting opportunities until he continues to call it a day. Gail, Bo, any other you want to discuss this Povetkin fight and what could be up for him, or do you want to move on? I guess that means y'all guys want to move on. Let's move on into some news. We mentioned Canelo and Triple G, but first, I want your guys' reaction to the news regarding Keith Thurman. He was supposed to fight in May. Turns out now he's suffered an injury to his hand. Are we gonna see this dude in the ring? I'm gonna go to you, Bo. Am I jumping the gun and questioning whether Keith Thurman really wants to fight? Your thoughts on this news regarding One Time?
No, you're not actually jumping good. Keith Thurman, that's his new name now. I'm calling him Derrick Rose. He has gotten into competition. He's no longer a hungry fighter. You become no longer a hungry fighter, you look for reasons not to push yourself. You look for reasons not to give it your all. And I knew something was up back to Jesse Vargas. And I knew something was up. I said, what better way to if you're back than fighting the Jesse Vargas? And when they took the forever opponent that seems to get a fight to the entire team gets in. So he won. And then you won't see him again for the rest of the year. And remember, he said, what did he say here, baby? He didn't know that, and on his radar. And he, if he's hurt, we'll question whether he's hurt or not. But I'm gonna question his desire. I just think that desire is, because he got complacent, it happens in boxing. It really does. I just don't think that he one time there. I think.
Okay, Bo, you kind of breaking up on us. Maybe it's some communication issues on your end. I'm going to go to everybody else here on the panel in the hangout. Reaction to the latest injury, cancellation, whatever you want to call it, regarding Keith Thurman.
Here's my concern. A guy is out of the ring for a while, and especially in Thurman's case, where he's had a lot of other stuff going on outside the ring, they don't stay very hungry, and they'll have a small injury, and I'm sure this is a legitimate injury. I'm certainly not questioning whether what's being reported is not on the up and up. I'm sure it is. There are a lot of guys who, when they're hungry, when they're being aggressive, when they've got something to prove, they have a small injury. You know what? They don't say anything. or they keep it under wraps, or they say, well, it's not that big a deal. And they just power forward. They just keep going. You know, it becomes very easy when you're comfortable to let a small injury derail you, and then one more, and then it's not the right time, and then you got something else going on, and suddenly you've just sort of lost that hunger that drove you when you started the sport. I am concerned that we're starting to see that with Thurman. No question, he's already had a great career. There's a lot more he could do, a lot more in the division, but the drive has to come from him, and I seriously question whether it's there, at least whether it's there as it was several years ago when he was so hungry. I'm not seeing it. And no, I don't think we will see him this year. I'm saying that in April. I don't think we're going to see him. I hope I'm wrong.
Has the desire gone from the guy that Errol Spence termed sometimes Thurman? First you, Jacob, and then you, Daniel.
I mean, for me, I think Thurman was, in my opinion, scared of Spence, and that's why it's been delayed so long. But the reality of it is that Spence is going to have fought twice before we'll probably see Thurman once, and Spence will have fought Thurman's previous, what should have been his mandatory, and Lamont Peterson, and I don't know who he's fighting next, but I mean he's on the calendar, and he's trying to get these fights going, and it's unfortunate because it's not like I hate Thurman, I just want to see him fight, but he might be one of those fighters that has these nagging injuries that keep on coming back or keep on happening. But in that case too, very similar to the Canelo thing, in the sense that if what you're doing in the gym or doing outside of the gym is causing consistent injuries, then I don't know, maybe you got to change some things up, or I don't know, you got to do less things. I mean, even like Verdejo, right? He had to get on a motorcycle, and he got hurt really bad, and he got knocked out his last fight. So, we don't even know when he comes back from injury if he's going to be the same Keith Thurman. He might never recover, because some of these injuries that these guys get, sometimes they just don't recover. And so I don't know. We'll have to see when he comes back, but it's a bad, I think, trend that we've seen in boxing from the old days to the new days, where somebody can have a belt or belts and fight one time a year. So in that sense, he is Keith one-time Thurman, where he's fighting one time a year. I mean, that's, to me, it's terrible.
Before I go to Daniel, I want to give a shout out to everybody who joined us in the chat, who are joining us in the chat, in the live chat. 122-4529, Fink SGRRR. Thanks for joining us on the show. Thanks for listening to us live. I'll go to you, Daniel. Reaction to the news that Thurman once again injured.
I think it's a combination of what everybody's talking about. Okay, he won the belts, and then unfortunately he got a little bit complacent. He got married. He's enjoying that part of life, and he unfortunately, may have lost the will that he had to really fight. I'm pretty sure that there is will there, but it's not what it used to be. And ultimately now with a hand injury, now there's, like I said, there's a good chance, and if you even start training camp, like I said, it probably would be in the summer for a fall fight. But you were number one now, holding two welterweight belts hostage. And two, he's become what he railed against. Remember how he railed against Paulie Malignaggi when he had the WBA strap? Going to the press conference yelling, "You better not duck me." And now he's become Paulie in that sense. He has a mandatory with Sean Porter. Yes, Errol Spence took care of his WBA mandatory. But like I said, there's probably other news going into it because now there's certain things that are happening all over the place involving the regular WBA welterweight belt right now. And he's probably not going to be around to do it. I feel legitimately bad because I remember seeing Keith Thurman when he won, I think, his 17th or 18th fight, his first appearance on Showtime. It's either on Showtime or HBO, and immediately called out Floyd. And now he's becoming, unfortunately, a little bit of wasted potential at a time where the division wants to heat up. So that's going to be what we're going to have to see. And oh, dear God. Is that true, Mike? Are you putting that up? Oh, no.
Nah, that's true. That's true. It's true. So that link that I put up in the chat. For those who don't know, again, more breaking news. It looks like former flyweight champions Koki Kameda, Pongsakat Wanjakam, who fought each other in 2010 at flyweight. Wanjakam won, beat Kameda to regain the WBC flyweight title. Apparently, they're coming back out of it. Both are coming out of retirement for a one-fight return to fight each other. I don't know why. The fight's going to happen May 5th in Tokyo. I guess they're doing it for the money. My question is why? One Junkam is 40. Kameda is 31, but still he hasn't fought for a few years now. So again, why? So yeah, Daniel, that story is true. But let's move on into this Canelo Triple G stuff. Speaking of more drama, soap opera-ish. While this week will be dominated by Joshua and Wilder, last week it was dominated. The news was dominated by Canelo and Triple G. For those we were off last week, but for those who do not know, who've been sleeping under a rock, it looks more and more likely that Canelo and Triple G will not happen. Nevada State Athletic Commission filed a complaint against Canelo. As Bo alluded to when he was here, I think Bro broke out because of some connection issues on his end. Canelo's going to have a press conference tomorrow, 3 p.m. Refunds are already in order for the fights. A litany of opponents talk about the possibility of fighting Triple G in case the fight is officially canceled from folks from Demetrius Andrade and wait for it, Gail Chavez Jr. Both said they would love to fight Triple G as a replacement. I can't remember the fighter over in the UK who's also been mentioned as a possible replacement. But yeah, this week is the drama about Joshua and Wilder. Last week is the drama about Canelo and Triple G. I go to you, Gail. You had some more breaking news coming down the pike regarding that. Please give some details.
It has been high drama all afternoon in connection with the Canelo and Triple G event. The first piece of paperwork that hit the news media was a public notice of a meeting called before the Nevada State Athletic Commission for Thursday, April 5th. The Nevada State Athletic Commission is considered a public governmental, body, and their meetings are subject to open meeting laws, which meaning the meetings have to be publicly noticed. So the paperwork goes out from the state of Nevada. And most open meeting laws call for 72 hours notice. That's why we saw it today for Thursday. The order of business on the docket is to gain permission from the commission to move the Canelo Golovkin 2 fight from T-Mobile to the MGM Grand. That's a fact. That's on the paper. That's what's being asked. Tom Loeffler has already made some comments to media that this is going to happen, that the tickets will, for the new venue, be substantially reduced in price. That's his words. And it is still going to be a pay-per-view, however, whatever event transpires in that arena, whatever event, right? This is a move to a smaller venue, a less expensive venue to run and operate. I think everybody's got the tea leaves being read from that alone. So that happens. A couple of hours later, Golden Boy Promotions invites a select group of media in Los Angeles to a news conference, invite only, private, tomorrow at 12 noon at the Golden Boy offices in Los Angeles. Not at a hotel, not at a restaurant, not at a public venue, no agenda, just we're inviting you to a private media news conference. Show up, do not talk about it, well, it's all over the place. So they're going to have to acknowledge it. I think we all, if the writing wasn't on the wall, in big letters, now it's been spray painted, in the brightest colors possible. I think we all gather that this fight is off. We're not going to be waiting for an official sanction or suspension from the commission in Nevada. And blessedly so. The clock's ticking. The clock's ticking for Golovkin and his team to decide what to do. The clock is ticking for the commission, for the venue, for the hotels, for the fans, for everyone involved that has to make a big prize fight event go on. To say nothing of the undercard, everybody involved. This is affecting a lot more than just 2 champion middleweights. So if we can gain 2 weeks on making a decision, perhaps, as to what's going to happen, good. The more the better. I wrote in my column a week or 2 ago that the best possible thing that could happen would be for Golden Boy, Oscar, and for Canelo Alvarez to voluntarily pull out of the fight, to let K2 and Loeffler and Golovkin and their team move forward, to give them room to move. And he certainly doesn't have to admit to anything. In fact, just the opposite. As a show of goodwill, pulling out so that his results are not tainted. Because win or lose, if the fight was to continue, there would always be doubts. Those doubts would never go away. The only way they're going to go away is for him to voluntarily step aside, prove he's clean, and come back at some point in the future. Now, the question is, how long is he going to be suspended by the Nevada State Athletic Commission? 6 months would make things all very neat and easy. I'm not sure it is going to be neat and easy. So that's going to be part 2 of the drama. But we aren't even there yet. We're going to probably find out here within 24 hours, if not 72 hours, get the official word. Yes, it's off. Done deal. This fight is not happening on May 5th, but some other fight is going to happen because now we've got a new venue, the same players involved on Golovkin's side who are going to be looking for an opponent. And there are a lot of people lining up to fill that dance card. A lot of people. Some are waving their hands in the air. Others are being put forward by fans who hope for certain candidates to be put forward. But there are really probably just a couple of leading candidates, and that's something we can all discuss as a group in the next chapter of this discussion in a few minutes. But lots of high drama. If you're not used to watching daytime soap operas or reality TV, I hope it doesn't spin your head too much.
I see Scorsese has joined us. I'm going to him shortly. A question here in the chat from Finks GRRR. What pressure can we expect from Thurman sanctioning bodies? I'll tell you what pressure. Strip him of the belt. He's going to be out this long, continue to be inactive. Strip him. Then we'll see how he will react and how he will, that's my solution to him. If he wants to stay on the shelf, relieve him of the belts because it's long enough. He's been sitting on the sideline. I know he's injured and all that, but why should he still be champion? The titles are up. The belts WBC BA are up, and no activity. Just strip him of the belts. Have the number 1, 2, 3 contenders fight for each of those respective section of bodies titles, and move on. And wait till he comes back. And then once he comes back, give him a shot then. But for now, you shouldn't be holding those belts for hostage essentially, while everybody's putting in work. Strip them of the belts. That's my only solution. I go to you, Scorsese. You're just now joining us. I'm going to go back here with you. Your impressions of Joshua Parker, as well as this recent developments regarding Triple G and Canelo. I don't think he's available right now. Okay, I see him. Jackson wants to hold on a second. So I'll go to you, Daniel and Jacobs. Your response to, again, the drama of Canelo.
Drama indeed. Now, like I said, this time I probably want to bring up like the thing that the main article that I sent you, Mike, regarding this whole situation with Literal. Because this may be what Canelo's going to wind up talking about, which is, I think somebody put it on the MMA app, on the MMA site, Bloody Elbow, some of the things that were said about Cliberol and some of the misconceptions of it. He was talking about the specific levels. It is unclear to show a certain amount where it is cycling down, or if it is contaminated meat. And even brought this up because I know Gus mentioned a hair test. That's one way to test for possible PED use, but apparently there have been, at least from what I found, at least 3 or 4 scientific studies that have found people that are given the same amount of clenbuterol. One person shows a low amount, another person shows a really drastically higher amount, and the only difference was their hair color. So that plays into the fact where that issue could be, unfortunately, tainted in that sense as far as a hair test. When it comes to everything else, like they did shed some light, unfortunately, upon the Nevada State Athletic Commission not exactly being a real good, competent body when it comes to situations like this, when it comes to some drug testing issues. They brought up the MMA issue with Nick Diaz, where 2 tests came clean, 1 test came out dirty, and they used only the dirty test to suspend Nick Diaz for weed. That's most likely what the conversation is going to be involving Canelo. Like just talking about the levels, just trying to present his case that he's clean. And like I said, the logical thing now would be if K2's already doing this, K2 would, in all honesty, K2 wouldn't be doing what they're doing if Golden Boy didn't already give the okay. Unless Tom Loeffler really is going rogue here. And we find out that the conferences for Canelo say this fight's not done. Golovkin's trying to get out of it. Just trying to preserve his case, which would be the worst thing he can do at this stage. The problem with that front is it's not a lot of time to make a fight. We are literally, it's only going to be a month away. And it takes you're going to get somebody that has to have a 4-week training camp and an opponent. And from the names that are being thrown, think about it. Okay, we know Chavez. Well, Chavez Jr. does those names in the ring because he wants to be somewhat relevant. Zurdo Ramirez has thrown his name into the ring. Would that mean that Golovkin would have to fight at super middleweight? Or would Zurdo make the dumb mistake of trying to go down to middleweight to fight Golovkin? There's Andrade. I'm not gonna take Andrade seriously. I'm sorry, not for a while. But then there's also his mandatory in the IBF, Derevchenko. He can actually be lined up to fight Golovkin. I think he stays in the gym pretty well. So, and luckily the T-Mobile Arena, MGM and Grand are owned by the same company, so the person holding the venue is not really losing that much money, or the logistics won't be as drastic. It just means you're taking the post, you're going to move from one location to another, and it's saying reduced prices. Now, the whole point is going to be now when it comes to HBO, is this still going to be a pay-per-view fight, or is this just now going to be regular HBO Championship boxing? Because if you're selling tickets at a very reduced rate and you're trying to make this affordable, unfortunately, with Golovkin's track record in pay-per-views, you can't do a pay-per-view again. Not this soon. Not this drastically, because... Say again?
Well, Loeffler has already said it will be a pay-per-view.
Oh, dear Jesus.
Yeah.
Oh.
And when we say substantially reduced, well, remember, we're talking about probably the most expensive venue in boxing, the T-Mobile Arena. So when we say reduced, it's reduced from that. It's not reduced from what StubHub charges down. So, you know, I'm sure a ticket is at the MGM is still going to be what most people would consider real money.
Oh, no, it was. I think that too. It's going to be probably real money, but you can't really. No, he has to move away from the stance of the pay-per-view. It's too soon to do it for a makeshift fight. Not to mention, let's say, not to mention that just for the sake of it, Golden Boy, if they're moving with this, what's to stop them from saying, okay, Lomachenko Linares is now on May 5th in Madison Square Garden. They could easily play that game too. Because they want that May 5th date, Golden Boy. And I don't think they're going to lose it that fast.
Well, if they're going to lose it anyway, the question is, did they work out some kind of a deal to retain the undercard fights with K2? You know, Tom and Oscar do a lot of business together. You know, LA may be a big city, but the boxing community there is not very big. And they may have tried their best to help each other out behind the scenes to say, all right, what can we salvage from this, right? What can we do? Can Oscar still pick up some promotional money by putting on the undercard portion of the fight where he legitimately has a lot more talent to offer and still fill up the card while K2 runs the main event, and they still, you know, get the show done and get out of there, you know, at least manage to pay their bills and their staff and their overhead and cover the purses. You know, I don't think anybody's going to wander away with a big profit on this one, but there's at least a way to stem the bleeding. So, you know, it's going to be interesting to see what Canelo and Oscar have to say tomorrow. I'm with you. I sure as hell hope there aren't going to be a litany of excuses or protests or we're still in it kind of thing going on tomorrow. They've got to bow to the inevitable, graciously get out of the way. Canelo can still protest his innocence while stepping away from the fight, because he can say, if it was me advising him, I'd tell him to maintain his innocence and say, but you know what? I am willing to prove it. I'm willing to prove it to everybody by testing clean for the next 6 months, by not going forward with a fight where everyone has doubts. I will clear you all of those doubts. I will prove to you I'm clean. I'll submit myself to testing as much as you want for the next 6 months and continue to train and prove that I am fighting clean. And just wait and see. That would be the best possible thing for him to do to restore his reputation, because right now it's in tatters, unfortunately. And what if he is innocent? What if he is? What a disaster.
Yeah, what if? They're going all through this. I don't think he's innocent, in my personal opinion. Let's go to Jacob and Scorsese. Your reaction to this, or are you just like, I'm tired of the BS. I'm tired of the drama. Let's get back to the stuff that's happening in the ring. Your thoughts, Jacob, then Scorsese.
I mean, I was kind of done with even the first fight in the sense that it took so long to make, and just all this stuff going on. It's to me, it's not boxing. It's unfortunate that these things happen. For Canelo's part, which they have to take responsibility for. It's almost like the Ortiz situation. You're in the sport. You know that there's from what I'm hearing, the levels are consistent with the previous claims, like with Francisco Vargas and whatnot. But I agree with everybody on the panel that damage control, the worst thing he can do is kind of throw mud the other way towards Golovkin and say that their team is scared. I think that's worst case scenario. And maybe, I mean, I don't personally think that he's cheating. But I'm not a scientist or doctor either. I mean, he's never popped before. But I mean, this whole thing's a mess. It's bad for the sport of boxing. Hopefully, they're able to put a decent fight in front of Golovkin, but I don't have high hopes on that. That they're gonna. I think it's gonna be a very disappointing opponent, unfortunately. And then it's like, okay, does Golovkin sit on the shelf till September? The other big, because we know Canelo only fights twice a year. So I don't know. It's he's just gonna get older. He's just gonna get slower. He's just gonna get I don't know. It's a mess. I don't know. I don't even know what to say anymore. I wasn't really looking forward to it, and I'm still not.
To me, I just this what this says to me, ultimately what's going to happen, excuse me, is that they're going to find a way to push this back in this fight till September. Suspend Canelo for 90 days, which would be more than adequate, would be fall in perfectly until they try to remake this fight in September. To me, that's what's going to happen. Because like I said before, like I was saying a couple of weeks ago, again, it's too much money on the line for both of these guys, for Golden Boy, for HBO. Yeah, the Nevada State Athletic Commission is doing this and doing that, but there will be some finagling, some politics done behind the scenes to make this fight happen come hell or high water this year. That's just my opinion. It's not going to happen in May, but it'll happen later this year.
That's what we thought. We thought. I mean, I think on the last podcast we had, before more information came out, was there's too much money on the table for this not to happen. But we're seriously. I mean, it's pretty much a sure thing that it's not going to happen. And then the other thing too, the other factor here is Golden Boy and Canelo not wanting to play ball with the WBC, and even if this fight goes down, he's not going to fight for that belt, and so that puts, let's say he wins, you have this possible, is he cheating? Is he not cheating? Whenever they have that fight, and then he's not going to be the unified champion because he's not going to pony up the money for the belt. So there's all kinds of just different drama here, and it doesn't make the picture any clearer for that division.
Well, actually, from what I've seen, from what it was in the fight, the WBC belt was gonna be on the line, whether Canelo liked it or not.
But it would go vacant because he can't win it. right? He has to pay
No,
the
no,
fees
no.
in order to win it.
He would win the belt, but he would probably vacate it, which then opens up, the plethora of avenues of what his and his team have been accused of for years when it comes to the Charlos. But the whole aspect of it is it's turned into a really, really bad situation. And in a way, this is probably the Nevada State Athletic Commission trying to make up for some of the shady decisions that they've made in the past regarding fights. Saying
And fighters.
with fighters, saying, okay, we're going to be strict now with this person when it comes to it. And if it's the case where he is innocent, then you pretty much fumbled an entire event, and maybe you won't. Maybe even though it won't make as much money if we do have the fight in September, maybe it won't be in Vegas. Maybe it could be in Texas this time around.
Yeah. So again, this is yeah. I just wish they would just get the BS over with, make a definitive decision, so for all parties involved. Uh, Triple G still on fighting on HBO. On pay per view. That's ridiculous. Make it an HBO fight against whoever, and then try to make the next big fight after that. So yeah, this is a cluster. You know what? At the end of the day, and all parties are involved. All parties get both middle fingers from me. HBO, the sanctioning bodies, Canelo, Golden Boy. This is a mess, and this is unnecessary drama that should not happen. Um, and it's and the responsibility lays on everyone. Again, the drama continues. The drama continues, unfortunately, within the sweet science. I think you was wanting to say something, Gail, or somebody was wanting to say something. I guess not. I guess not. Let's move on to uh, talk about some actual fights, fights, and preview what's happening this weekend. Unification bout at 154 pounds on Showtime in Las Vegas. Jarrett Hurd, Erislandy Lara. Very intriguing matchup. Hurd, who looks big as a house. Um, he looks like a super middleweight fighting at 154
Looks, he
pounds.
is. He
Yep.
is, man. That
I
guy's
mean,
huge.
when they had the face off for that Showtime presser, he towered over Erislandy and Lara, not just in height but in size. Um, Hurd has said he can only make the weight for two more fights, this fight and another fight. Uh, Hurd is a come forward fighter who swarms you with his size, with his physicality, and his pressure against Lara, who's a boxer par excellence. I'll go to you, Jacob, since your thoughts on this. I could see a scenario where Lara could outbox Jared Hurd for 12 rounds, but I could also see a scenario where Hurd slowly but surely hunts down Erislandy Lara and beats him up over 12 rounds or just stops him late. Your thoughts on this bout? Intriguing matchup.
Yeah, I think when the show where Showtime had released their schedule of fights, we said, what was our favorite at two fights, and this is, I think, my number two fight, in the sense that it was intriguing because you have someone that's Lara, who's a boxer, from the Cuban school of boxing, very slick, versus this beast of a man, Hurd, who I'm surprised he can make the weight. I mean, that guy's gigantic.
I mean, the dude is
Um,
basically a middleweight, super middleweight who can
he's just
happen to
like
barely make 154 pounds.
he could be a super middleweight. I think. I mean, he has the body type that he could be, and he wouldn't be a small super middleweight either. Um, but I'm really intrigued by this matchup. I think Lara has had not so great performances, but also maybe not so great opponents that are gonna potentially that don't give them like the I guess the challenge or they're not adversarial in a way. And I think Hurd's gonna really try to put pressure on Lara. And we've seen fighters like Angulo in his heyday put some pressure on Lara, and and actually, get him, knock him down, and make a close fight out of it. So I think that's going to be his guest game plan, and I think that's where he's going to rely on his power and landing, the big telling shots. He'll probably give away some rounds to Lara and his slickness, but I think he'll eventually get to him, and I think he can put him down and maybe even stop him in the late round. So I'm going to go with Hurd in this one.
For me, the key is how much work will, how much of an effect will it be on Jarrett Hurd getting down to 154 pounds again, given that he's basically on the cusp of moving up to 160. If he can get down to the weight and is still strong, I think he very well has the possibility of slowly but surely breaking down Lara and stopping him late because Lara can't hurt him. He can't hurt him, and Lara is the older guy, the older fighter. If he really struggles badly to make weight, he could be very weak, and because he could be very weak, will not be able to cut the ring off as well, and Lara could squeeze out a decision win. Um, Going against the apple cart here. I'm agreeing with you, Jacob. I'm going with Hurd, being able to break down Lara and stop him late. Uh, Going to you, Gail. Your thoughts?
Make that 3. I see this for Hurd for all the reasons stated above. Couldn't endorse that more. I've liked what Hurd's had to offer. I think he's had some, rough stops on the learning curve, but I see him prevailing on Saturday.
Your thoughts on this fight, Daniel?
Well, I guess I'm going to be the commercial that says that 3 out of 4 people would agree, and I'm the 4th. I think Lara's going to win on this because the things that showed up in the Austin Trout fight with Hurd, even though he won, are things that Erislandy and Lara is actually better at than Austin Trout is. When it comes to movement, when it comes to slickness, when it comes to defense. And I could see a situation where Hurd might try to look down and then it lets Lara come in and counter effectively and have him move out the way. And I could see that situation where it'll be a decision. It probably won't be a popular one, but I can see Lara pulling this out.
Let's move on to the fights on the undercard. One of the upsets of late last year was Caleb Truax going to the UK, defeating James DeGale, taking away DeGale's IBF super middleweight title. DeGale coming off of a long layoff following his disputed draw against oh my gosh, brain freeze, y'all. Who Baldu Jack, excuse me, Baldu Jack. Yeah. They're going to fight a rematch on this undercard on the 7th next week in Las Vegas. These fights are all happening on Showtime, by the way. On paper, DeGale is the more talented fighter. Of course, you could have said that during the first fight, and Truax didn't just beat DeGale. To me, he beat him up. So there's real questions about DeGale, where he is from a physical and mental standpoint. Maybe he overlooked him. Maybe he's on the physical decline. I don't know. My head says DeGale will find a way to somehow bring it together for this fight because he is the more talented fighter. However, there's a piece of me that's like, maybe DeGale is physically done at this point. I'm going with DeGale on this one, but it's an iffy pick for me. Your thoughts?
I think when you see a pattern and one guy's graph is going up and the other's going down, there's a lot to be said for momentum. Right now, Truax has the momentum. DeGale has had a lot of stutters over the last months, and I think he's in big trouble. Truax figured him out DeGale's the one that's going to have to change things up, change his approach, and perhaps get a little lucky. Truax, in essence, just has to do what he did last time. So who has the bigger task? I think the much bigger job falls to DeGale. And what's he got left in the tank? Hard to say. Very hard to say. He took a beating last time. He really did. I mean, you don't see a lot of boxers lose teeth. When I see that, I mean, we just saw Oscar Valdez lose quite a few. It's going to be interesting to see what happens with him. I just had this conversation with somebody. Boxers do not tend to have their teeth knocked out. NHL players have their teeth knocked out more than boxers, which just seems counterintuitive. When you see a guy losing teeth, sometimes that's indicative of just how seriously he was overmatched. And I just don't think things are looking good for old Chunky. And it's too bad. He's likable. He's been fun to watch. But I think you're looking at one guy's career on the ascendance and one guy's career on the decline, and they're crossing paths.
I'll go to you on this one, Daniel. Your thoughts on this fight? Is DeGale coming back too soon?
Yeah, that's pretty much an understatement. I get it. I get the needing to come back. The feeling that this guy wasn't supposed to beat me. The judges got it wrong. At the same time, though, DeGale has been one of those fighters. Like Gail mentioned Oscar Valdez, who's just been in fights that have been a lot tougher than what people thought it would be for him. Whether it was Jack, whether it was Butte, whether it was Porky Medina, and now it looks like with Truax, they became harder for him. And it looks like he only knows how to fight a certain way, where he doesn't turn on the gas in the early rounds and then tries to come back full force in the second half of the fight. You eventually run into somebody that knows that playbook, which Truax did, and beats you on. And I do think it is too soon for him to come back from this, because obviously I said your face has to heal, which I don't think he probably let that happen. And in many ways, like I said, he probably should have just had time to get his mind together. Because I think this was probably an impulse decision, trying to get the fight so soon. But you may be thinking that Truax might be a little bit overconfident. He feels that he beat him once, he could beat him again easily. And then DeGale can capitalize on that. The problem with that, though, is Truax isn't exactly a person when you meet the guy in the interactions outside of the ring, that he doesn't seem to be a guy that is very cocky or thinks his shit don't stink. He's a pretty mild-mannered person from what I've seen, and he's going to come into purpose. He's going to come in to prove that that win was not a fluke. And I think he'll beat DeGale, most likely. And unfortunately, what happens is when it comes to fighters, so when you beat a fighter the first time, you could beat him worse the second time, especially if it's too soon.
Your thoughts, Jacob?
I think, unfortunately, DeGale's in a situation where he can't really. I don't think he can stay in the shelf too long. He's been in some tough fights, but I think he's either going to win this fight and prove that he's here, or he's going to lose it badly. And I think you could put a fork in him and he's done, which would be a shame. But it does happen in boxing where sometimes you just have too many tough fights, or the way you fight, you put yourself in too many tough situations, like the last fight where he put himself on the ropes, I thought, way too often. And, he was getting hit a lot. And I'm going to put a little faith in him and say he's gonna make the adjustments and he's gonna eke out a win here. But again, like I said, if he loses, I think he's gonna lose bad, and I think that could be the end of him at that elite level. Which I hope is not the case, because I really do like DeGale. I think he has talent, but he has to be smart about it. He's got to use his talent. Hopefully they've watched the fights, the tapes, and they can pick on the things that they did wrong, and correct those and get back on top. But we'll see.
Um, Olaf the Mighty in the chat talking about uh, Lara and Hurd. He picks Lara by decision. I just want to make that note. Again, it could be a case with DeGale and Truax that DeGale may be physically shot. Um, I'm going against the trend here. Um, I'm going to say he's going to reserve himself for one fight. Going to put it all together for one fight and beat this guy. But again, you could be right, Daniel. You could be right, Jacob. Um, that fight with Baldu Jack was a punishing fight. He follows up with a bout against Truax, which is also a punishing fight. So he may be physically done, but I'm going against the apple card anyway. I'm going on a leap of faith. I'm going with the Gale. I'm going with the Gale by decision. But it could be a situation where if he's done, if he's physically shot, like a lot of folks feel, Truax will not only beat him, he'll stop him this time. He'll stop him this time. Um, the last bout on the docket, we're going to talk about Julian Williams. He's going to be fighting an eliminator against a guy by the name of Gallimore. Also on this card, I'll just leave it up to you guys. I don't know much. I do not know much about Nathaniel Gallimore. Any thoughts on this fight regarding J Rock?
I think that's a resounding no.
Yeah.
And sometimes I'm amazed how many fights we are all cognizant of, but sometimes you got one on the docket.
I refuse to talk Sergio Mora and Angulo. Just no.
Right. There's just some stuff we can only
I got standards.
We can only pay attention to so much stuff going on.
I got standards, I got standards.
Well, think about it. The fact that we don't know anything about his opponent is probably the right stepping stone to rebuild J-Rod after the way he lost to Jamal. So you have to try to build him back up and build him back up in a way where you can say, kind of in the way that Dillian White was rebuilt. It took Dillian White 5 or 6 fights to get to this point where now you can say, yeah, we should see him versus Wilder, or we should see him in a rematch with Joshua. Kind of it's the same thing with J-Rock. You have to build him up and saying, okay, now he's ready for Jermell. Now he's ready for Lara. Now he's ready for Hurd. So it's a good thing to build him up. It just now he has to show and prove. You can't become a Felix Verdejo in a situation where you're giving easy opponents and the fight becomes harder than it was supposed to be.
So yeah,
Mike, you're not going to talk about the Latin snake versus the dog?
Nope. Nope.
Come on, they got 2 animal nicknames, so we just pick who we think is going to win, animal wise, not the fighter.
Nope. I told you I got standards. I refuse. I think they were trolling just with this fight, just like I think Chavez was trolling about being a replacement for Triple G. I will not.
I actually can't believe they're letting Angulo fight. He's like he's on that level of the Roy Jones Jr. and
he's worse. He's worse. What is the
No, I saw his last fight. He got his ass kicked by who's that guy? Like a trash man or something? I don't know.
I'm wondering if he can legitimately see. What is the Vegas Commission doing?
That's why I'm surprised he actually passed. Or I wouldn't be surprised if they stopped the fight for some reason.
And there we go. A perfect segue into what the Nevada State Athletic Commission is doing. So hold on to your hats, folks, because within the next 72 hours, things could get very, very rocky because of that commission.
And I think there it is. I think we're going to stop the show on that note. One last comment from Olaf the Mighty in the chat. I would love for her to, I would love for her to get rid of that plague. I just don't see it. So I think he's going with Lara to win the bout. Shout out to Olaf. Shout out to Finks. Shout out to 1224. 529 for joining us in the chat. I'm going to go around the panel here. I want to thank both for joining us in the show earlier briefly. Begin the show starting with ladies first. Going to end the show starting with ladies first. Gail from Community Digital News. For folks who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk Dancing with the Stars, Game of Thrones, environmental issues, small business advice, let the folks know where they can find you.
You can find me, the bookend, the official bookend of the Pound for Pound Boxing Report, front and back, on Communities Digital News, which is COMM, C-O-M-M, Digi, D-I-G-I News, comdiginews.com. I will be all over Twitter tomorrow. Boxing Twitter should be aflame, and there I am at PR Pro San Diego. We're going to find out what Wilder has to say. We're going to find out what Canelo has to say. And we're going to find out what everybody else has got to say. Maybe we'll get wind of, if the fight is off, who the replacement is. And I've got a pretty damn good idea. And if you want to hit me offline, I'll tell you what I think.
Indeed, indeed. Daniel from the Inscriber. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk the NBA, specifically the Miami Heat playoffs are coming soon. Let the people know where they can find you.
You can find me on Twitter, Ruckus99. You can find my show at 4boxnews.com and on SoundCloud with the good folks at 4boxnews.com, John Francis. And obviously, the original plan was Sunday, but I forgot it was Easter. So we're going to have actually a show tomorrow night where we're definitely going to have a lot of clarity about what we spoke about tonight.
Jacob from Jabhook Boxing, for those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk movies, let the people know where they can find you.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, as always, Mike. And, shout out to everybody on the live chat. Gus, Scorsese, I know he dipped in for a second, but and of course Bo for being on. But yeah, I can be found at Twitter, JRATM23. You want to talk movies or boxing? That's pretty much all I tweet about.
Indeed, indeed. For those who want to talk the sweet science, for those who want to talk music, for those who want to talk fitness with me, you know what it is. You can find me personally on Twitter at BrotherJR76. As I said to begin the show, for those who want to check out all info regarding Pound for Pound Boxing Report, blog page is the place to go to. P4pboxingreport.wordpress.com is the link. You can check the right of the page for the channels and pages: Twitter, Facebook, G+, Tumblr, YouTube, and also links to listen to the show, links to find where to listen to the show on SoundCloud, iTunes, Google Play Music, Stitch Radio, Player FM over in the UK. If you like what you heard, particularly you listen to the live show, please click that like button. Please click that subscribe button. Please leave a review on iTunes. Leave some commentary on SoundCloud. 5-star rating on iTunes. I will make sure to read it during the show. On the next episode, we will do a recap of Hurd Lara, do a recap of Truax DeGale rematch, and talk about Julian Williams. Not a exciting a lot of fights on the week of the 14th, but we'll find something to talk about. Maybe we'll talk about Francisco Vargas and his return to the ring against the infamous Rod Salka. But we may talk about that. There's some and any other bouts of that may intrigue us. the way boxing's been popping off news-wise the past couple of hours, and the drama, will surely be something to pop off in the next week. So, again, more boxing fights, more boxing news. We will talk about that next week. For Gail from Communities Digital News, from Daniel of the Inscriber, Jacob of Jabcook, both from Truth and Facts, who joined us briefly. I want to thank everybody in the chat again. 122, one, Olaf the Mighty, Finks. Let me get this right. 1224529, and all others. Thanks for joining us in the chat. Episode 203 of Pound for Pound Box Report. We will see you guys next week, hopefully. Everybody have a good evening. Good night.